When you finally step back from someone, when you stop calling, texting, explaining yourself, or trying to make them understand your value, something powerful happens. The energy starts to shift. It's quiet, but it's real. You can feel it in the air. That space you created, that silence you left behind, starts speaking louder than anything you ever said before. See, people get comfortable with your energy when you give it freely. They get used to your presence, your consistency, your light. They start thinking it's just gonna be there, no matter what. But when you detach, when you pull your energy back, they start realizing what it really meant to have you. You can tell a lot about somebody by what happens when you stop showing up. Some people panic because their validation came from your attention. Others respect it because they know what it takes to step away. That's the difference between people who value your presence and people who are just consuming it. When you stop contacting someone, you're not punishing them, you're protecting your peace. You're reminding yourself that your energy is not free. You had to build that, you had to go through something to carry that type of presence. And when someone doesn't appreciate it, you gotta let silence teach what your words couldn't. The shift happens inside you first. You stop overthinking, you stop replaying old conversations, you stop checking for replies that never come. Instead, you start checking yourself, your goals, your moves, your growth. You realize all that energy you were giving out, it's time to invest it back into your own life. You start feeling lighter, clearer. That constant need to prove your worth fades away because you start remembering that your value never came from who you could keep. It came from what you stand for. Detachment isn't about not caring, it's about caring enough for yourself to stop begging for connection. It's a quiet strength. It's realizing that sometimes walking away is louder than staying and talking. The people who were using your energy as their comfort zone will feel the difference. They'll start wondering why things feel different, why the vibe don't hit the same. But that's the thing about energy. When it's genuine, its absence exposes everything. They start missing your presence, not because of what you said, but because of how it felt to be around you. And while they're processing that, you're transforming, you're growing, you're moving with a different type of confidence, the kind that doesn't need validation. You're not chasing anymore, you're attracting. Because when your focus shifts to yourself, when you pour into your grind, your peace, your health, your purpose, that glow hits different. The same people who took your energy for granted start noticing the change. They see the discipline, the silence, the elevation. They start realizing what they lost when they stopped respecting your presence. That's the energy shift right there. It's not revenge, it's reflection. You're not trying to make anyone regret losing you. You're showing what it looks like to not lose yourself. That's real power. It's when you stop explaining and start evolving. When you let your actions speak for your intentions. When you move with peace instead of pressure, you start understanding that not everyone deserves front row access to your growth. Some people only belong in your past because they can't handle the version of you that's focused. The truth is, energy never lies. You can fake a smile, fake a pose, fake a conversation, but you can't fake vibration. When you pull your energy back, people feel that. Even if they act unbothered, even if they move on quick, they feel that silence hit because it's not just about you disappearing. It's about the space you once filled being empty now. That's why you never chase what pulls away. You let it go and you let time and silence do what they do best, reveal. When you detach, your power returns. You start realizing how much of yourself you were giving to situations that weren't feeding your soul. You start creating boundaries, not out of anger, but out of awareness. And that's where the peace comes from. Because once you get comfortable being alone, once you start loving your own space, you become dangerous in the best way. Not because you don't need anybody, but because you finally understand that needing yourself was the first step to everything else. So when the energy shifts, don't fight it. Flow with it. That silence that feels strange at first is peace arriving. That distance that feels cold is clarity stepping in. And that old version of you that used to beg, chase, explain is gone. You grew through it. And now you move different. You talk less. You move smarter. You value your presence. Because once you learn that your energy is your currency, you stop spending it where it doesn't grow. And that's when everything and everyone starts to shift around you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can ever say is nothing. Silence has a way of cutting through the noise, of exposing truth without you having to lift a word. When you stop explaining yourself, stop arguing, stop chasing validation from people who never really listen, that's when your silence starts speaking for you. Because silence ain't weakness, it's discipline, it's control, it's knowing your energy too valuable to keep wasting on ears that don't want to understand. See, when you move in silence, people get uncomfortable. They start wondering what's on your mind. what your next move is, why you not reacting the way you used to. That's when they start realizing your peace wasn't built on attention, it was built on purpose. Most people talk because they can't handle the quiet. They need noise to feel relevant, to feel seen. But the ones who've been through something, who've lost, learned, and leveled up, they know silence is sacred. It's where you think, it's where you plan, it's where you build. You ever notice how when you finally stop talking about something, people start paying attention? That's because silence forces people to look at their own actions. When you stop responding, stop reacting, stop trying to fix what keeps breaking you, the other side starts to fill the void. They start realizing the weight your words used to carry. It's funny how people never hear you when you speak, but the moment you go quiet, your absence becomes loud. Silence exposes character. It shows you who's real, who's loyal, who's just around for convenience. When you pull your energy back, you see who checks on you without needing anything. You see who respects your space. You see who notices the difference between your presence and your distance. And in that quiet, you gain more truth than any conversation could ever give. But silence ain't just about cutting people off. It's about tuning into yourself. It's about giving your mind room to breathe. You start realizing you don't need to explain your growth, you just need to live it. Every second you spend defending yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you, that's energy wasted. You could have used that to build something, to learn something, to evolve. Silence becomes your filter. You start separating what deserves a reaction and what deserves to fade away. When you move like that, people start respecting you differently. They see you not chasing drama, not reacting to hate, not clapping back at every opinion, and that unnerves them because peace is power. It's rare. It's something you can't fake. And when you walk in that energy, you start controlling the narrative without even speaking. You make your silence louder than any noise could ever be. Sometimes silence hurts people more than words ever could because they expected you to react. They wanted that emotional response, that argument, that attention. But when you give them nothing, when you stay calm, stay focused, stay grounded, you're showing that you've outgrown that level. You're not moved by the same things anymore. You're showing you learned the game. Because silence is strategy. It's the art of not wasting your moves. And silence don't mean you ain't feeling nothing. It just means you've mastered your emotions. You've learned that not everything deserves access to your energy. You're saving it for what matters, your purpose, your vision, your next level. While everybody else is talking, posting, arguing, proving, you're just working. And one day your results start talking louder than their words ever did. That's the beauty of silence. It builds empires while others are busy making noise. The real ones understand that silence doesn't mean absence. It means elevation. It's when you start hearing things you couldn't before. Your intuition, your peace, your goals calling your name. You start realizing that talking too much gives people power over your path. But when you move quietly, nobody can interfere with your blessings because they don't even know where to aim. You protect your energy by protecting your voice. The loudest moves are often made in quiet rooms. The most powerful growth happens when nobody's watching because that's when you're real. That's when you're not performing. That's when you're building from a pure place. And when you finally come back, when you finally speak again, your silence will have made your voice more valuable because people listen different when you've been quiet for a while. They can feel the weight of your calm. They can tell you've been growing in private. So stop trying to prove. Stop trying to explain. Stop trying to convince. Let your silence work for you. Let it create distance between who you were and who you're becoming. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you win because you're showing that peace is your priority now. And when peace becomes your priority, nothing can shake you anymore. Silence don't mean you lost the argument. It means you won your focus. And that's the kind of victory that lasts forever. When you finally stop chasing people and start chasing your purpose, everything changes. The energy shifts. The whole way you move begins to feel different. You start realizing that all the time you spend trying to make people see your worth, trying to get them to show up for you the way you showed up for them, that was time you could have been building yourself. You start seeing that the game was never about getting them to believe in you. It was about you believing in yourself enough to stop needing their validation. Focusing on yourself ain't selfish, it's survival. It's knowing that nobody's gonna hand you the life you want. You gotta create it. And when you start moving like that, when you start putting your energy into your grind, your growth, your discipline, people notice. They might not clap for you, but they feel that shift. The same ones who used to ignore your calls start watching your stories. The same ones who said you changed start realizing they never knew who you were to begin with. That's the power of self-focus. It don't require noise, it speaks through results. You reach a point where drama don't entertain you, gossip don't feed you, and validation don't excite you anymore. You just want peace, you just want progress. You just want to feel proud of the person you see in the mirror. And that happens when you start turning all that energy inward. When you start asking, what can I build? What can I fix? What can I improve? Instead of who's gonna love me right or who's gonna stay, that mindset right there changes everything. Because once you start focusing on yourself, you realize how much time you wasted explaining your value to people who never had the range to see it. You realize that your worth don't increase when someone finally recognizes it was always there. It's just now you stop handing it out for free. You stop giving people discounts on your energy. You stop chasing potential and started chasing progress.
When you get locked in with yourself, the world gets quiet. You stop needing attention because your focus becomes your fuel. You start waking up with purpose, with clarity. You don't need people to check on you because your goals keep you accountable. You stop waiting for opportunities, you create them. That's when you understand that self-focus is the real flex. Not money, not status, not attention. Discipline, consistency, self-respect. That's the type of energy people can feel without you even speaking.
And the crazy part is, the moment you stop chasing people, they start chasing you. Because now your energy's rare. You're not available like you used to be. You're not picking up every call. You're not explaining every move. You're too busy building that silence, that mystery, that growth. It attracts everything you used to chase. But now you're different. You don't need it the same way anymore because your focus taught you peace and peace taught you power. It's not an overnight change. It's lonely at first. You start distancing yourself from certain people, certain habits, certain environments. You start feeling that void, that space. But that's the part where you rebuild. That's where you fill that space with purpose. You learn to enjoy your own company. You learn to clap for yourself. You learn that solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation. Because when you're focused, you're in training mode. You're sharpening your mind, strengthening your discipline, becoming the version of yourself that can handle what you've been praying for. Most people never get there because they're too busy watching everyone else. They want success, but they're addicted to distraction. They want growth, but they can't let go of comfort. But once you learn how to sit with yourself, how to work in silence, how to move without approval, that's when life starts opening doors you didn't even knock on. Because the universe responds to consistency. When you show that you're serious, blessings start aligning in ways you couldn't plan. You start moving out of emotion and start moving out of vision. You start forcing things and start flowing. You start explaining yourself to people who don't understand your journey and start surrounding yourself with those who do. You stop competing with others and start competing with yesterday's version of you. That's the mindset shift that separates talkers from builders. When you focus on yourself, you build a foundation no one can shake. You stop reacting to distractions because you know your time is currency. You stop letting temporary emotions make permanent decisions. You start valuing peace over presence, growth over gossip, consistency over attention. That's when you become unstoppable because you're no longer dependent on anyone else to keep you going. The real glow up ain't in looks, money, or fame. It's in peace. It's when your mind is calm, your vision is clear, and your purpose is louder than your pain. That's what happens when you make yourself the priority. You stop being drained and start being driven. You stop waiting for people to choose you and start choosing yourself every single day. And once you reach that point, when your self-focus becomes your foundation, the whole world starts adjusting to your energy. Because when you move with purpose, everything else has no choice but to move around you. Respect don't come from talking about what you deserve. It comes from showing people what you'll no longer tolerate. Sometimes you got to step back to remind people who you are. You got to create distance so your presence regains its value. Because when you're always available, people start acting like your time, your energy, your love ain't worth much. They get comfortable. They forget that access to you is a privilege, not a right. But the moment you pull back, when you stop showing up for everything and everyone, that's when the shift happens. That's when people start remembering what it felt like to have you close. See, distance ain't about pride, it's about peace. It's not about ego. It's about boundaries. You start realizing that not everybody deserves the same version of you. Some people only respect your energy when they can't reach it anymore. When you're always there, they start thinking you'll always be there. But when you step away, when you stop explaining, stop proving, stop giving chances, your absence starts doing the talking. That silence, that distance, it forces people to think. It makes them replay everything they took for granted. And when you're too close, people can't see your value clearly. You become part of their routine, their comfort zone. They stop appreciating your consistency. But distance creates perspective. When you're no longer around, that's when they start realizing how much you really did. They start missing the little things, your advice, your energy, your loyalty. That's when they understand that respect isn't given to the loudest voice. It's given to the one who knows when to walk away. Sometimes you got to stop reminding people what they lost and let them feel it. You don't got to argue or explain. Just move different, protect your peace, redirect your energy, focus on your grind. Because when you start prioritizing yourself, people notice. They feel the shift. They see you're no longer available to things that drain you. And that's when respect starts returning. Not because you demanded it, but because you showed them you don't need their validation to move forward. It's crazy how the same people who ignored you when you were present start chasing you once you disappear. That's the power of distance. It exposes what's real and what's fake. The ones who truly value you will make an effort to bridge that gap. The ones who never cared will fade into silence. Either way, you win. Because distance gives you clarity. It shows you who's for you and who's just around for convenience. Respect comes when people realize they can't predict you anymore. When they can't read your every move. When they can't drain your energy on demand. They start watching from a distance, wondering what changed. But what really changed is your mindset. You stop needing to be understood and start focusing on being respected. And respect always grows in silence. When you talk less, move smarter, and stand firm, your value speaks for itself. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is step back without warning. No argument, no announcement, just distance. Because when you disappear quietly, people have no one to blame but themselves. They start looking inward, wondering why you stopped showing up. That's when the truth hits. They start seeing how much they contributed to your absence. And if they really respect you, they'll adjust. If they don't, they'll replace you. And either way, you'll be fine. Because distance don't just teach others, it strengthens you. It teaches you control, patience, and self-worth. You start realizing that not everyone's meant to walk with you. Some people only exist to teach you how to set boundaries. They remind you that being kind doesn't mean being available, that being loyal doesn't mean being blind. So you create distance, not from hate, but from understanding. Because you finally learn that respect isn't something you ask for, it's something you command through your energy, your actions, and your silence. When you start valuing your time, people start valuing it too. When you stop showing up every time they call, they start calling less. But when they do, it's with intention. Distance filters out the noise. It leaves only those who are real. And that's where peace lives, in the space between who you were trying to please and who you're becoming. The more you grow, the smaller your circle gets. Not because you hate people, but because your standards changed. You learn that you can't grow in the same environment that disrespects your worth. You can't evolve around people who only notice your value when you're gone. So you create that space, and in that space, you find power, you find peace, you find respect. Because the truth is, respect isn't about control. It's about recognition. It's about showing people that your energy is not a guarantee. When you step back, they either step up or step away. Both answers are clarity, and clarity is worth every inch of distance you had to create.